slides class. I want to talk about printing a little bit and then get into the digital printing. So printing is the process of applying a pattern or design onto a fabric. Unlike dyeing, printing is applied to certain areas of the fabric and done so in specific patterns. Printing is generally a cheaper way to add designs and patterns to fabric rather than knitting or weaving with multicolored yarns. Printing fabrics has been around for centuries, and the earliest known printing was freehand painting patterns onto textiles. So people discovered that if a design is transferred to a flat surface that can be coated with a color and stamped onto fabric, the same design can be reliably repeated many times. This makes it easier because it's much simpler, unchanging, and quicker. So 3 types of traditional printing: block printing, roller printing, and screen printing. Block printing, you take a block and tap it, hammer it onto the fabric. Roller printing is very similar to screen printing, but except that it has rollers that go into troughs, so the fabric comes down and the design is transferred onto the fabric, and a blade scrapes off the excess paste back into the troughs. And then for screen printing, you have flatbed screen printing, which is the one below, and rotary screen printing, which is what Kenyon has, which you've seen there. So with rotary screen printing, you can do pigment printing or wet printing. Pigment printing involves a paste of pigment and binder, and once printed, it's dried and then cured. Wet printing involves dyes. So the dyes are printed onto the fabric in paste form, dried, and then go through an after wash in order to avoid any excess dye. And that's actually Kenyon. So the digital printer, Kenyon actually has a digital printer, which is in our R&D lab. My example is the digital printer from our plant. Digital printing was first introduced in the 1990s, but did not truly gather momentum until the 2000s. So prior to digitally printing, it requires a specialty fabric. This special fabric has a special chemical patted on, and then it's heat set. So because a print paste cannot be printed, a thickener that would normally be in the dye paste must be applied to the fabric prior to printing so the design does not wick. When pre-treatment is not done properly, the most obvious sign will be inconsistent color. Inadequate pre-treatment causes poor opacity, which results in bad color. And unlike other fabrics, digital printing textiles have a shelf life. So as long as the fabric is not subject to lighting, it can last for approximately 6 months to 1 year. A way to extend the life is to wrap it in black bags, as long as it's not subject to lighting, but it does have a shelf life, which is the downside. It's taking a long time transferring. Okay, there it goes. So when the designer's working on the design, the image or pattern that we've printed is uploaded to Photoshop. That's the program that my company uses. There's other design programs that they can use, but Photoshop is the best for editing photos. Here you can work on the sharpness, the color of the image, or even special effects such as a filter. Once the image has been edited, you have to convert it to the LAB values. And then you upload it into an editor, another editor. So my company uses Stork Job Editor because they have a Stork Ruby 5 digital printer. So in this program, all you can do is you can change the image size and you can change the repeat, so the pattern repeat. During this whole process, when you're getting ready to print, you have to heat up the blanket. Now, this is what they call it, that black kind of sticky part. It actually holds down the fabric. Without this, the fabric would slide across the surface, and the printing may be uneven or out of register. So once the blanket has been heated and your design is set, you need to choose the substrate, which you're going to be printing on. So they do this in the Stork Print program. You can activate the profile and choose the substrate or fabric. Each substrate has its own profile as they require different passes from the printhead. So for example, silk requires 6 passes and a 70 denier nylon requires 12 passes. The digital printer features a variety of print heads and cartridges. The one at my company has 8 cartridges, as you can see, and has 4 print heads. This allows the Stork Ruby 5 to print over 14,000 different colors. Once the image has been printed, the goods must run through an ager, such as an areole steam ager, to develop the colors. Then the fabric runs through an afterwash to remove any residuals, and once dry, the fabric is complete. Digital printing has really gotten more prevalent in the fashion world recently. Prada, in 2004, showcased various skirts and jackets with digitally generated images. In 2008, they did the same in their spring and summer collection, and this here is their spring and summer collection from 2010, which featured a beach theme. We have palm trees and images of people on the beach. More recently, their spring and summer 2013 line featured dandelions on dresses, skirts, and jackets. Zach Posen has also become involved in this, and this is a wedding dress from his 2013 summer line, where he digitally printed a floral design onto the dress. Mary Katrinzu, I think, is one of the pioneers in the digital printing industry. She has taken designs and images of simple items and created them into pieces of art. Her dresses actually sell right off the runway for approximately 30,000 pounds each dress, and her commercial items begin at 500 pounds, so she's really shaken this and run with it. Another fashion in the line. The name that I cannot pronounce underneath this, Pascale, Laura, I don't know, is actually a RISD graduate, and she is the head of textile design for this brand. She takes images of organic materials, plastic bags, whatever kind of draws her interest, and digitally prints them and creates patterns out of them. She actually said that she takes a lot of items out of the garbage and takes pictures of them. She finds beauty in things that other people don't. So, but she... An example of a company that's really taken hold of this industry is Spoonflower. You can upload your own designs, or you can pick one of theirs and you can digitally print it. There's no minimums, there's no lead, basically no lead time. For $5 you can get a swatch of something that you've designed. And then later on I'll show you some of their more of their prices. But they have various substrates, and they offer international shipping. They've really kind of they've made a business out of this. They also have a weekly designer that they will showcase. Someone that creates a design, they'll have like a weekly contest. It's just great. Some positives to digital printing. There's no screens required to buy. With traditional roller screen printing, each color requires a different screen. So each screen typically costs $500. For example, if you look at Multicam, which is the Army's print, it has 7 colors. So that's approximately $3,500 worth of screens before you've even printed the fabric. So that alone is a huge savings when going to digital printing. It takes approximately 40 hours of work if you have a new design, for the screen designer to figure out how they're going to separate the pattern into the different screens. So it's just a considerable amount of Digital printing, as I said before, you can have 14,000 different colors. With screen printing, you're limited to the number of screens that you can have. So approximately 6 to 12 screens on a pattern. So you could have 12 colors, whereas in digital printing, you can have as many as you want. There's also no print repeat requirement. So you can print just a picture, or you could have it repeat however you want, whereas in screen printing, you have a limitation there. There's little to no minimums, because you can just print, and there are minimal lead times. So that's really helpful, because what previously would have taken a few months, you can now have within a few days. So this has really changed the textile workflow. The traditional textile workflow was you prepare the design, you engrave the screen, you strike off and show the customer and have them approve it, you print it, and then you send it to the cut and sew. With digital textile workflow, you've cut this down to 3 steps. You prepare the design, you print, and you ship it to the cut and sew. However, there are a few negatives. One is the specialty fabric. It has a shelf life, it tends to be more expensive. It may or may not be readily available because of the shelf life. Another issue is that you're limited on width. My company can print up to 61 inches, but as you'll see on my next slide, Spoonflower only has 45 to 52 inch width goods, which you just have to buy more fabric then, so it's more expensive. Education, as always, with technology, that's a problem. You need to educate the person who's going to be using it, and or educate the designer who needs to know the limitations. And that is a cost and time consuming. And the next problem is cost. Here are Spoonflower's prices for their current, depending on what fabric you choose. So you can get cotton, you can do silk, they have like a nice variety, but then as you can see, you're paying $27 a yard. My company, we produce for the military and we do large quantities, but if you take like a 500 denier nylon Kadura, that will run you $6.30 to $8 a yard for printed fabric, whereas this is $27 a yard, so it's just more expensive. Yeah, acid dyes. So the price is steadily decreasing for digital printing, but it's still relatively expensive depending on your quantity. The textile printing market is now estimated at $43 billion. Digital printing is estimated to be about 1.5% of this amount and continues to grow. From here you can see that the volume of digital printing is expected to grow to 1.4 billion square meters by 2017. It's actually the fastest growing method for printing fabrics right now. And even though digital textiles only account for approximately 1.5%, it's expected to grow to 10% within the next decade. And the future. The future will be bringing us, we have high-speed printers that are readily available now. There's also in June 2013, Tenkata released a digital finishing printer, which you can actually print UV technology, you can print fire resistance, permethrin, which is really good for the Army. You don't want that touching your skin, and they can print it on one side rather than coating it like you would normally finishing fabric. So it's just going to be really interesting technology coming out. And it's also nice because you can print finishes on fabric and not have the large quantities that you typically need. You can do a small amount, which is huge for the industry.